From Washington, D.C., RFA Insider starts right now.
That was Eugene and I'm Amy, and today love is in the air.
It is?
Yes, because today is Valentine's Day. La, 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 okay. Yeah. Okay.
Well, first up on RFA Insider, we're talking with an RFA staffer who escaped Tibet by hiking through the Himalayas to India as a child.
And then on the rundown, we've got a story discussing Lunar New Year celebrations in China, and then a very special Valentine's Day rundown through all the countries in our broadcast areas.
Wow, the rundown is back? I love the rundown!
Told you, love is in the air.
Stay tuned for an episode you'll love coming up on RFA Insider.
懶生乜女話
咪嚟提
tập trung vào chủ đề
딴소리하지 마
RFA
Imagine you are a kid living in Tibet and one day you are sent on a journey that will take you away from your family, probably forever. For over 60 years, thousands of Tibetans have made the heartbreaking decision to leave their home, their family, and their country behind. Many of them are children. They are smuggled from Tibet through Nepal to Dharamshala, India, where the Tibetan government in exile helps provide escapees with a better life. The journey typically lasts around 20 to 35 days on foot on average. Many of them are led by Sherpas, who are often called Lamtiba, which means guiding Tibetans. These Sherpas have been lifelines for Tibetans, guiding them through the perilous Himalaya mountains to escape from Chinese repressions. They have found secret safe ways for Tibetans to get into Nepal.
All right, so today we're pleased to welcome Lobsang Gelek into the studio. And Lobsang is a journalist with RFA's Investigative team, and he's been making waves lately with his reports on Tibet. So welcome to the podcast, Lobsang.
Yeah, welcome.
Thanks, Amy and Eugene for having me on your show. So happy Valentine's Day.
Oh,
Yes,
thank you.
happy Valentine's
Happy Valentine's Day to you too.
Thanks so much. Yeah.
If you're a longtime listener to RFA Insider, you may recall hearing Lobsang's voice in episode 15, where we used a clip of a video he had discussing caterpillar fungus, which is also known as quote-unquote the Himalayan Viagra. So, that ties into Valentine's Day a little bit. But that, of course, is not the focus of our interview today. Instead, what we really wanted to talk to you about today, your own story of escaping Tibet on foot as a child. So can you first try to paint a picture for us? So you left Tibet when you were 10 years old, right?
Right.
So prior to leaving, what was your life like up to that point, growing up in Tibet?
At that time, I was a kid, right? So childhood means no having worry,
Yeah.
just having fun and being a troublemaker for your parents,
Right.
right?
Right.
Everybody knows about the childhood life.
Right.
But I think the turning point, the watershed moment in my life is when my father decided to send me to India
Mm-hmm.
at the time. So during that time, it was in 2003. My parents sent me to Lhasa, where my father doing some business over there. So we used to watch Indian Bollywood movies. The Lhasa, if you go to the street of Lhasa at that time, you can hear the Indian Bollywood movies. From father showed me some movies about the Govinda, the actor Govinda starring in the movie and showing beautiful swimming pool and beautiful cities. And so father asked me, son, you want to go to this place? So beautiful. So I said yes without thinking second thought,
Okay, so I guess he was trying to paint an idealized picture of what India is like then.
Yeah. So in Indian Bollywood movies, the dance part only shows the good scenes and beautiful scenes, right?
Of course.
So father sent me to India with 42 people. It took us 32 days. I don't remember the exact date. More than 1 month to reach to Nepal.
And you traveled almost exclusively on foot, right?
Yeah.
So why do you think your father wanted to send you away from home? Or what do you think his concerns were about life under PRC rule?
Yeah. So what has happened in Tibet over the last 60 years is devastating, So many innocent Tibetans lost their life. And 150 Tibetans set themselves on fire for the cause of Tibet, to preserve Tibetan religions and cultures. The common slogan is to return of His Holiness Dalai Lama to Tibet. So this is the kind of situations in Tibet. So I think my father decided to send me to India because of my future, to have a better life. So sometimes I realized that sometimes I feel angry towards my father because of his decisions. Because of that, I haven't met my parents for 20 years, right? Sometimes I feel like why my father decided this kind of decisions. The pain of separations. So but Tibetans in our society, it's kind of normal in our societies. But when we write down the stories and share the stories, you can feel the separation still linger in your heart.
I see. So on the note about sharing, in the beginning of the piece, you mentioned that you didn't think the story was really worth sharing at all because you said it's so common within the Tibetan exile community. Yeah. So I guess how out in the open is the business of smuggling out of Tibet, and is it difficult to find a smuggler?
The question sounds like I have been working for smuggling job,
No. I mean, like, just how do people have to try to keep it a secret, or do they actually?
Just giving you a vision.
Yeah.
So it is very difficult to find a smuggler.
Okay.
So number one, I think you have to have human-to-human connections.
Okay.
Plus the trust. You have to build up a trust within smuggler and the dealer. You can't find on the website and Facebook, Instagram, right? Smuggler things, right?
Right, of course not.
Okay, you have to contact with the people in a secret way. So I think my father did the same things. He contacted with the Tibetans who smuggling from Tibet to Nepal, India. So finally he find that smuggler guy and paid 10,000 Chinese yen. At that time, I was talking about 2004. Yeah, asked me to write down the story. Yeah. So I tried to find some smugglers.
Right.
Smugglers, but it was so difficult because smuggler means illegal things, right? You couldn't find it easily. Finally, I was able to find a Sherpa smuggler.
Okay.
The Himalayan Nepalese smugglers. So he opened up to me and said what they smuggled, how they smuggled Tibetans from Tibet to Nepal. So some of his stories, the experiences, same as our stories. How we escape from Tibet, how we cross the steep slope, rugged valleys, and peerless Himalaya mountains. So how we walked in snows. The same story that he shared with us. So I realized, that the story has the power.
So since you mentioned the cost, it was 10,000 Chinese yuan to smuggle you from Tibet to India, correct?
Exactly.
So that was around, or today that's around like $1,370. Is that a significant amount of money for an average Tibetan family? So
yeah, that's a lot of money, I think. A lot of money. But in that case, my father was doing pretty good in his business at that time. So he had that money, I think. We compared to that amount to the normal life in my village. I think probably it is equivalent to many of a villager in my hometown's annual income. At that time, I remember 2003, 2002, we don't have proper electricity in our hometowns. Most of the family use that candle lamp during the night.
So your journey through the mountains, that took nearly a month.
Yeah.
So when people say, like, I go mountain climbing, they're talking about climbing a small hill on the weekend and going hiking. I guess I'd like to ask, like, what was the hardest part of your journey through such arduous terrain?
When journey starts, I don't feel that much sad or missing or something because as a kid, I was so small, young at that time. So moving after 3 or 4 or 7 days, then I started missing my parents.
Of course.
And plus hunger, right? So many things happened. Sometimes we crossed that steep slope valley, and sometimes we had to sleep in the mountain cave during the day, and in the night we had to walk. That's all I remember.
So walking at night and sleeping in the day, is that to avoid detection?
Yeah, to avoid the Chinese restrictions
I see.
And that authorities. Right.
Your piece stops when you arrive in Nepal at the Tibetan Reception Center. But then a little while later, you moved to Dharamsala, India. So why didn't you just go straight from Tibet to India?
Oh, that's a funny question, because You don't have any choice, We are not going for a trip, right?
Right.
So you have to choose the best path, less risky.
The least
Right.
risky route. Right. Okay.
Yeah, less, because Tibet shares border with Nepal, India as well. Of course, everybody wishes to travel through India direct without going to Nepal. But you can't move to India. More restrictions on the border with India and Tibet than Nepal and Tibet. That's why we escaped from Nepal,
So it's easier to cross the border into India from Nepal.
from Nepal. Also, the smuggler knows the route better, right? Most of the smugglers are from crossing through this way.
So you wrote that at the reception center that you tried to call your father several times, but you were not able to reach him in Lhasa. So why not?
I think my father gave me a wrong number.
Oh.
Wrong number. Because if I call him from Nepal to Lhasa, he might get arrested. So he gave me a wrong number to sacrifice everything.
What were some of the big differences between growing up as a kid in Tibet and then growing up as part of the exiled Tibetan community in India?
Yeah, that's a good question. Growing up in India and growing up in Tibet has a big difference. Number one, those who born in India, grow up in India, can speak 3 languages. Some Tibetans speak 4 languages: Hindi, Tibetan, English, and Chinese.
Oh.
Wow.
Number 2, kids, those who born in India, can speak Tibetan very well, fluently. Those who born in Tibet, kids speak Chinese. Some of kids couldn't speak Tibetan language very well because of a Chinese policy, I think, education policy. They try to assimilate Tibetan culture into Chinese culture, right? You guys may heard about the boarding school,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
How they brainwash Tibetan kids from 5 years old.
All right. So finally, I have one last question for you. I would like to talk about this for a long time, but we are limited for time here. So your desk is right behind mine on the 5th floor here at RFA. And I've heard so many people come up to you and tell you that they were in tears when they read this story. And then earlier discussions, and earlier today, you even said that you didn't think the story was so amazing, and especially among other Tibetans. So I guess, why do you think this resonates with non-Tibetans so much? And then I guess I'd also like to ask, has this reaction made you realize that this actually is such an amazing story? Then you can reflect upon it yourself and realize that, no, this is really amazing. I went through something really amazing and difficult, and here I am.
When I share my stories, the escape stories with non-Tibetans, like RFA staffers and people in Washington, D.C., Virginia. So when I share with Bo, the investigative, our boss, so Bo asked me, Lobsang, you should write down your stories and we can publish it. We can share it with the world. So I feel like there was not that much worth writing about it, because the story is very common and very, what to say, it's normal in our community.
Right.
Everybody knows.
The community being the Tibetan exile community?
Yeah, Tibetan exile communities. Because most of them are escaped from Tibet. If you were born in India, your parents must have escaped from Tibet, shared the same story. It is not unique. It is not news. The school in India where I did my undergraduate was in Dehradun, North India. So our school motto is wildflower, which means resilient in any situations, unlike a garden flower, so delicate. So it sounds like the non-Tibetans are garden flower, well cared, well fed, and well loved. So when they hear the story of separations and painful separations, then that's why it feels more resonate. And plus, they feel the pain. Because for us, it is kind of normal. But as much as I share my story with like you guys and share others, my personal stories, how I escaped from Tibet through this Himalaya, I feel like something is there we need to share to the world. That's why I'm here.
Okay. Is there any final thought you'd like to say on Tibet or your personal story or anything else?
So I just want to say something to my parents if they are listening to this podcast. I have contact with some of my classmates in Tibet. They said we watch YouTube using VPN. They can watch some YouTube and so. What I want to say is, if my parents listen to this podcast, I want to say I'm fine. I'm doing well here in the United States of America. So what I am today is because of my father, right? Father's decisions. So because of his visions. So I think I have a bright future here today. So I just want to say I'm fine. I'm doing well here. So thanks so much, Eugene and Amy, for having me here.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to share my personal stories with you guys.
Yeah,
Okay.
Thanks for telling it to us.
Thank you very much for coming to the studio today. So let's end on that. That's a good note to end on. Stay tuned for more RFA Insider.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lobsang.
How is it good?
Yeah, that's great. You're listening to the RFA Insider podcast, made by two real-life staffers at Radio Free Asia.
If you'd like to send us feedback, there are many ways you can do this.
You can send us an email at insider@rfa.org.
You can comment on our webpage at rfa.org/English/insider. Just click on the episode you're listening to and write your comment below.
Or you can send us a tweet at RFA Insider or visit us in person.
No, don't visit us in person.
Right, don't visit us in person. But anyway, we really want to hear from you
So tune in every other Friday and we'll take you behind the scenes.
and tell you what the news really means here at RFA Insider. All right, so wow, what a touching story. We're really happy to have Lobsang in here at the studio with us. And, you know, that's a really good story and everybody should check it out. We will, of course, link that in the show notes for RFA Insider. So if you're on the webpage, you can click the link on our website.
Yes, I thought his analogy with the flowers was beautiful, but also I'm pretty sure he was calling us big softies the whole interview.
Yeah, in some way. You know, the thing that, I just wanted to say, like, when you're so used to, negative things happening all the time, and then other people hear about it and they have this outpouring of emotion, it makes you realize that, this is really a big story and it's not normal, right? You can't exactly relate because you haven't been through it yourself, or I haven't anyway. But at the same time, you can imagine what it's like, and just the imagining part really connects with what he had to say so deeply.
Yeah, yes.
But let's go into Podcast Free Asia. All right, so today on Podcast Free Asia, we are not answering any listener comments or updating any upcoming developments, but we do need to remedy a situation.
Okay.
So in our contact info bumper, which you just heard at the end of our segment with Lobsang, it tells you there are several ways you can get in contact with us, but one of those does not exist anymore and it hasn't existed for quite a while. So the part where we say you can leave a message on our website, it's now inaccurate because we recently switched to a new CMS and this feature was scrapped. And also, the majority of our comments and criticisms seem to be coming from YouTube anyway, and that's not one of the ways that we suggested listeners should get in contact with us. So I think it's time that we record a new contact info bumper.
Okay.
So let's do that right now.
All right.
All right, you ready?
Yes.
All right. You're listening to the RFA Insider podcast, made by two real-life staffers at Radio Free Asia.
If you'd like to send us feedback, there are many ways you can do this.
If you're listening to us on YouTube, you can write us in the comment section below.
You can also send us an email at insider@rfa.org or tweet at RFA Insider.
Or you could even visit us in person.
No, don't visit us in person.
Right, don't visit us in person, but do check out our webpage at rfa.org/English/insider to see our profiles and read summaries and show notes for every episode.
So tune in every other Friday and we'll take you behind the scenes.
And tell you what the news really means here at RFA Insider. I think I'm going to mix the previous one and this one together.
Okay.
Okay, so I also wanted to change the slogan at the end because, but I couldn't really think of anything. So I did come up with one idea. It's like, you can enjoy a deep dive on the issues or a laugh that has you reaching for the tissues here at RFA Insider. But I thought about it, that's kind of cheesy. So I think we just leave it the way it was before. What do you think?
Yeah, I concur.
Okay. All right. Well, that's it for Podcast Free Asia today. Let's get into the rundown.
The Rundown.
All right. So we're celebrating Valentine's Day today, but another holiday only recently passed, which is Lunar New Year. So Eugene, do you know your zodiac and what it says about you?
Okay, well, I was born in the year of the horse.
Oh, okay.
But my knowledge of what that means is limited to, do you remember like a long time ago, if you go to a Chinese restaurant, it would have the placemat that
the
listed
paper
every
one.
one of them. The thing for the horse says, you're popular and attractive to the opposite sex. That's the first line, right?
Wow, okay.
And I don't think, I've never seen it anywhere except for on that placemat. If I've looked it up somewhere, it's always said something else. So, I don't know how true that is, but I'll take it, I suppose.
I just remember horses are supposed to be stubborn, I think.
Yeah, I can see that. That's probably true. Or like arrogant, or I don't know. It's kind of the same thing. I'm also a Leo too, which we've discussed about before. But Leo and horse is a bad combination because you end up being full of yourself and I don't know. In some ways, narcissistic. I don't think I am narcissistic, but I do. I guess I am a little bit self-centered from time to time. Yeah.
Wait,
how about you?
So we're both Leos and INFPs?
Leo, INFP, and well, I guess you're not a horse, but
No.
Okay.
I'm a pig, but going off the paper placemat, it was like chivalrous and diligent.
Oh, okay. That's pretty good. So
Like
honorable.
a working farm animal.
I don't really think of pigs as noble or anything
yeah.
Okay. But I maybe it's talking about the wild boar, right?
That's true.
Okay.
Okay, next. Do you know any Lunar New Year traditions or superstitions from any countries that celebrate?
Well, I guess know from Korea, but kind of New Year and what is it, the Moon Harvest Festival, they kind of run together. So it's kind of difficult to understand whether or not one is associated with the Harvest Festival, which is called Chuseok, or it's celebrated with the Lunar New Year, which is called Seollal, because you kind of do the same thing during both of them. I think the food is slightly different, though.
How so?
Well, you're supposed to eat songpyeon, which is like, I guess, the rice cake made by hand and filled with some different kinds of things. That's associated more with the Lunar New Year, I believe. But you also do the whole ancestor worship thing during both holidays, but that's supposed to be more associated with the harvest holiday. So, okay, guys, so it looks like I got it wrong here. It turns out Songpyeon is actually for Chuseok, not Seollal. On Seollal, you actually eat deokguk, which is rice cake soup. Another thing for the Lunar New Year is, of course, bowing to your elders and receiving money, which that's a huge thing that I should have remembered, but I did not because I didn't grow up celebrating this holiday. And that's the reason why I get confused about the two holidays and what you're supposed to do for each, when so many other things that you do for both of them are similar. I don't know. They kind of run together for me, but other countries I'm not really sure about. But yes, go on.
Yeah, I was recently talking to a staffer, and then I only learned this year that it's bad luck to cut your hair during Lunar New Year.
Really?
You're supposed to get that taken care of before the New Year, as with like deep cleaning your
Which
house.
country is this from?
At least in China and Vietnam.
Oh, okay. And deep clean your house before or after?
Yeah, you're supposed to get it all done before, so you have like a fresh start.
That's different from the West, because I think we have the whole spring cleaning thing, which is
true.
after New Year. But then again, New Year used to be in April, right? So
yes,
maybe it is before the New Year, right? Interesting.
So another thing that people do over Lunar New Year is visit the temple.
Ah, right.
And to be clear, the holiday doesn't have any religious affiliations, but the whole point is to put yourself on track for a good year. So it doesn't hurt to burn some incense or pray for like health, love, fortune, things like that.
Right. And you're talking primarily about Buddhist temples, or are there other folk religions that also have
I
temples?
think both temples, because you don't have to be.
But when you say both
specifically-
temples, what do you?
I guess
If we were talking about Japan, it would be Buddhist or Shinto, right? But
Right.
we're not necessarily talking about Japan, right? So
you can visit them and burn incense and pray for health and fortune to either the Buddha or your ancestors or folk deities.
okay,
So long as you're doing it, I think, to put yourself on course.
I see.
But actually, now that you mention that, one of the most visited temples in China is Beijing's Lamas Temple,
Okay.
which, like as the name implies, is a Tibetan Buddhist temple.
Okay.
So it's particularly popular for praying for a career or financial success.
Ah, okay.
So on the eve of this Lunar New Year, over 40,000 people waited in line outside the temple for hours, despite it being like, I think 14F outside, to do exactly that.
14F meaning the temperature.
Fahrenheit.
Fahrenheit.
Yes.
Okay, so very cold, very cold.
So, and also in Shanghai this year, local media reported that more than 100,000 people visited the temple on the first day of the New Year. But what's interesting is that many of these temple goers are now young people.
Mm-hmm.
So according to Chinese travel platforms, bookings for temple visits have more than tripled between 2022 and 2023. And then again between 2023 and 2024.
All right, when you say bookings for temple visits, that means you have to book in advance. You can't just go?
You gotta buy a ticket.
Oh my goodness.
To be able to
so I
visit.
guess then there's a limited number of people that can go in?
Yes.
Wow. I didn't know it was that popular.
It's quite bustling these days.
Yeah.
So from the data, a large bulk of these temple goers were born after 1990.
Okay.
So millennials, Gen Zers.
So your age, not mine.
Yes.
1990 was also another year of the horse, so.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Commentators are saying that young people in China are increasingly turning to temples and religion as a whole due to growing anxiety over their futures.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I don't know if you had this experience, but like in high school, I used to pray a lot for my SAT scores.
Oh, you
So
mean
I
you
can
just
like kind of relate.
say a prayer because you were raised Christian.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I feel
I used to do the same thing. And then in college, we had this thing, you know, the University of Maryland has the turtle mascot.
Yeah.
And there's like a statue of the turtle in front of the main library.
Yes.
And people would like give it offerings before finals, you know?
Ah.
And sometimes like, you know, burn incense and candles or give it like food or beer or whatever. And it was kind of like a superstition, but I guess like some people thought this is like sacrilegious.
Idol
or-
worship.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or blasphemous in some way, right?
I mean, yeah. In China, the economic slowdown means that young people are struggling to find jobs after graduation, especially after the pandemic. Youth unemployment hit 20% at one point, which is like 1 out of every 5 young people. And as a result, people are kind of losing trust in the system being that if you did well in school, you would reap the rewards.
Right.
And they're turning to religion to regain some sense of control or at least a bit of psychological comfort.
I see.
So all this interest in temples has even created a temple economy where people or like resellers will go to temples to specifically seek out like one special bracelet for like good health or like good luck.
Like when you say one special bracelet, does that mean one that's made by one specific popular maker, or is a specific type that just happens to be particularly lucky? Or
Yeah, they'll go to the temple souvenir shop and
Okay.
like they'll have seen like a post on like Red Note, for example,
Okay.
about one specific bracelet that's like super good for like career success. And they'll be like, oh, I need to get this because I have several interviews coming
wow,
up.
I guess they could even jack up the price if they wanted to make money too.
So Lama Temple, the one that I mentioned, had to release a statement because they were like, we have not approved of any resellers, like no third-party vendors.
Oh my
Because
goodness.
people were buying them and then reselling them online.
Yeah, or I guess you know, China is always coming under fire for like intellectual property theft. I wonder if they might try to like make
Copy,
fakes
yeah.
and then sell them on the internet, and then nobody would ever know or be able to verify if it was actually
Exactly.
real. Of course, I don't know if that's actually happening. I'm just saying, what if? So yeah.
So the reaction from the Chinese Communist Party, or the CCP, has been like mildly disapproving. The party officially promotes atheism. So when the temple boom first started, some state-owned papers such as Beijing News, they printed articles urging young people to stop burning so much incense and just work harder, which
Right,
obviously did
right.
not go over super well. But at the same time, the CCP also champions temples as part of like traditional Chinese culture and heritage.
Right.
So you can kind of imagine that the response would be very different if young people were turning to a quote-unquote outside religion.
Right, indeed. I do recall, I think I edited a story, or maybe even this story.
It was the story.
Okay. Yeah, the emphasis from the Chinese Communist Party in that story seemed to be very high, that they were very disapproving of it, but it seems like the kids were just fed up with the system, as you said, and they just wanted to try to get ahead in any way possible, because going through things just by the straight and narrow was not working, and they're like, I need to get an edge somehow. And so whether that's, you know, praying at the temple or saying a prayer or bowing down in front of the deity of the turtles at the University of Maryland,
Yeah.
I guess many people deal with their issues in many different ways. But let's move on to the next story, and this is the Valentine's Day rundown, because today is Valentine's Day. Well, actually, tomorrow is Valentine's Day, but we're recording. I thought it would be neat to talk about how people in our coverage areas or in adjacent countries celebrate Valentine's Day. So I think the most well-known to both of us, as people who have lived in both Korea and Japan, is that in both countries, it's the women who give the chocolates to the men in their lives on Valentine's Day. So when you were living in Japan, did you do that?
I would give it to like my friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was on the receiving end when I lived in Japan from a lot of the female students and some of my female coworkers, and then just some friends that I had.
Is this a humble brag, Eugene?
No. I think they were just giving it to every male person in their lives that they didn't hate.
You know, I read a statistic that like 85% or so of people who purchase chocolate in Japan on Valentine's Day are single women.
Really? Well, I guess that makes sense if they're students. I mean, so no, that does make sense. But I just wanted to say it's not necessarily people that you're romantically entwined with, right?
Just the burden of chocolate giving falls upon.
Right, and then so the actual romantic holiday is Christmas Eve rather than Valentine's Day, and also I think this is very similar to Korea as well. Although I don't think that people freely give the chocolates out to someone that they're not romantically interested, but it's still the women buying it for the men.
Right.
Okay. And then the men in both countries are supposed to reciprocate on White Day. And White Day is March 14th. And you're supposed to get like marshmallow candy or some other kind of treat that's white in color. And I'm actually not too sure about the complexities of it. In Japan anyway, I just kind of, everybody who gave me the chocolate, I remembered, and then I gave them the white candy. But I think that if you were to do that in Korea, it would be an expression of, I have interest in you, so thanks for the chocolate. Hey, let's see where this goes, So I kind of did not reciprocate as freely in Korea.
But I feel like it's only fair if you're getting chocolates from like platonic coworkers.
Right. But again, that happened in Japan, not so much in Korea.
I see.
So anyway, South Korea takes us even further. And of course, the 14th of each month through November is a special present day for couples. So here's a short list. Most interesting one is April 14th is called Black Day. And this is the day where people who they're not in a relationship and they didn't get chocolate or white candy, they're supposed to pair up and share their misery, the misery of being single, over a bowl of jjajangmyeon. And that's the noodles with black sauce, invented in Korea by the Hwagyo, which are, I guess... Okay, Hwagyo that's a really long tangent that is not... I'm not ready to explain and go off into the tangent. So basically, it's been described as Chinese Koreans or even Korean Chinese, and both of those are kind of inaccurate. But let's just say like these are the people that came to Korea before the Chinese Civil War was resolved, and so you can't call them PRC citizens because they're not. They're citizens of the ROC, but they don't necessarily have any ties to Taiwan because they were not part of the people who fled to Taiwan. Long story short, those people went into business making restaurants, and they developed this dish, jjajangmyeon, which is noodles with black sauce in Korea. And it's a Korean dish that everybody says in Korea is Chinese, but it's actually Korean Chinese is what they call it. Anyway, I think that this holiday, Black Day, was made by restaurant owners to try to drive up sales. But it is popular, and I think that's where most people stop. But it does go on.
Yeah, I have heard of Black Day.
Okay, so in May 14th is Rose Day or Yellow Day, and you're supposed to wear matching couple outfits and give yellow roses or all type of flowers, and you're supposed to eat yellow foods like curry. Curry, how romantic, right? Now, I don't know who started that holiday, but then June 14th is Kiss Day, and you're supposed to go out on dates and kiss in public and take a good selka together. Do you know what a selka is?
Yes.
Oh, you do? What is it?
Like a self-picture.
Yes.
Self-camera.
Right. Yes. So that's the English term for selfie that predates the actual word selfie, but because selfie gained prominence, people don't say selka anymore, they say selfie. Also, makeup companies on this day like to come out with special edition lipsticks or lip gloss. So I think this day was probably made by the makeup companies or the disposable camera companies back in the day when that was a thing. Then July 14th is Silver Day, and you're supposed to give silver jewelry. I've never really been big on jewelry, so this is also the first I've ever heard of it. August 14th is Green Day, not the band. Okay, so you're supposed to go out in nature and drink soju. And
Wait.
soju, yeah.
Oh, sorry. To clarify, you're doing all of this with your partner.
Yes, you're supposed to be doing this with your
I
romantic
see,
partner,
okay.
right? So you go out in nature and you drink soju. Soju comes in a green bottle. Soju is, of course, I guess it's closest to vodka. It's a Korean spirit that's really cheap. And so you go in nature and get drunk, right?
Okay.
Then September 14th is photo or music day. So you're supposed to go to the noraebang or the karaoke parlor and take pictures of yourself singing.
Was that created by the
Probably created by
karaoke companies?
I would think that that's probably who created it. And then October 14th is Red Day, and you're supposed to drink red wine.
Oh, okay.
So I think between May and October, people don't really pay that much attention to it unless they really want to, celebrate, find excuses to celebrate and go on dates.
Right.
Also, like couples often do the 100th day together anniversary. So it might fall within this range if you're started on Valentine's Day, right? But the next one is one that people actually do pay attention to. And it's not November 14th, it's November 11th, which is Pepero Day. Have you heard of this?
I have.
Okay.
Yes.
So Pepero is, of course, the cookie sticks. It's the biggest competitor to Pocky or Pocky.
Pocky, yes.
Okay. And that is November 11th because if you line 4 of the sticks next to each other, it looks like 11-11 or 11-11.
So 4 pepero sticks.
Right.
I remember when I was living in Korea, we had like language exchange partners in university. So I called him out on that day to give him pepero, and he had to explain to me that it was like a couple's thing to do.
Yeah.
But we were
That
just
must have
so
been
excited to
embarrassing.
engage.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm sure he appreciated it. Did you at least share them together?
No.
Oh no, he just took it.
He brought his own pepero to exchange
you.
because he saw it
Okay.
coming.
Okay. And then in December 24th, it's Christmas Eve. So whatever happens on Christmas Eve. Although it's not, I think Korea in general is more Christian than Japan, I
Yeah.
would say. So I think people might actually take that a little bit more seriously than its version in Japan where you get fried chicken and
Yes.
cake and go on a date somewhere. All right. And then January 14th is apparently Diary Day or Candle Day, but today is the first day I've ever heard of that when I looked it up on Google. So I don't know if people actually do that. But yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was
you
just
were
going to say it sounds a little lame, but
Yeah, well, I guess stationery companies might have invented that. I think most of these days were companies that were trying to figure out ways to drive up sales. And so that's why some of them are like 2 different things. It's photo and singing day. you know?
yeah.
But let's get on to our coverage areas. And sorry in advance for any inaccuracies, but I Googled a lot of this. So first of all, for North Korea, there's not really a lot of information, but we can infer from that the government probably frowns on inroads made by foreign culture. And in 2020, they've passed the Anti-Reactionary Thought and Culture Law, and that bans a lot of activities deemed to be capitalist or South Korean. So I would assume that any public celebration of Valentine's Day, whether following South Korean model or the Western one, would probably be punishable by law. So I don't imagine that people would do that. Plus, I would assume chocolate is pretty hard to come by in North Korea. So maybe it's
Yeah.
not something that you would just freely give out. But let's take a quick look at Southeast Asia first. And again, this is all from Google searches, so please take it with a grain of salt. So in Vietnam, it seems like they borrowed aspects from the Korean and Japanese versions of the holiday, according to the Australian outlet ABC. But they also celebrate it in a way that resembles the West. So it's kind of a combination of both.
Okay. So
And I think
there's,
that, yeah.
so there's just like still chocolate involved somehow.
Yeah, probably chocolate and flowers, and maybe you go on a date. But I think probably, this is my own inference, but you know how the Korean wave since the early 2000s really crashed first on East Asia. And a lot of times when you see pictures of Vietnam, at least to me, it reminds me of what Korea looked like in the 1990s. So I think that they are borrowing a lot from Korea because of, I guess, K-pop and the popularity of the Korean wave. And so they might have adopted some of the customs, like on Valentine's Day, of perhaps the women giving the men chocolate. But I don't know how much of that connection there actually is, because this article that I looked up actually was running down a lot of Southeast Asian countries and had like a paragraph on Vietnam.
Okay.
But Cambodia, the Khmer Times, published a story that said last year that the government was calling on people to celebrate the day, quote unquote, in accordance with Cambodia's traditions, preserving national identity, dignity, and family values.
Wow.
And it also compared polls on Valentine's Day taken in 2009 and 2024. And they found that people have soured their opinion of Valentine's Day. So 81% of couples in 2009 thought that Valentine's Day was important, but only 34% in 2024 did.
I'm curious what the reason behind that is.
I was reading it quickly, but I think the reason was because a lot of people just were fed up with the commercialism of it and having to spend lots of money just to like see someone that you're already with anyway.
Yeah, that's fair.
I guess. Then move on to Myanmar. You know, since the coup, there hasn't been a lot of information about this, and I'm sure people are not in a celebratory mood. But the Irrawaddy reported back in 2011 that the military authorities at that time were attempted to keep Western influence from debasing Burmese culture. But young people were embracing it anyway, with shops in Yangon decorating with roses and hearts. So 2011 was the time where I guess Myanmar was on its transition away from military rule towards the more democratic government. Of course, it would take a few years for the reforms to kick in. But I guess at that time, people were saying, hey, let's open up and explore this holiday and celebrate our love with each other. And the businesses all said, yeah, let's capitalize on this and put the pink hearts and flowers and roses everywhere. And hopefully we're able to get people to go on dates. Finally, we moved to Laos. So during this special time, many businesses, apparently, restaurants and cafes in Laos, roll out special Valentine's Day menus or promotions aiming to draw more customers and craft memorable experiences for couples. So it sounds like a normal Valentine's Day in the U.S. This is according to the Laotian Times. So it seems like it's not that different from anywhere else. Okay.
Any listeners who want to podcast Free Asia on any of this, I would be so curious to hear.
Yes, that's a good idea. If you know something that is different from what I said, please comment about it and we will read it in a future episode. And let's move on to China. This one is actually pretty special. So Lobsang actually said that before we actually were talking to him that in Tibet, they don't really do much of anything in there. But I learned something when researching this, that Valentine's Day is sometimes in China celebrated by, again, borrowing from the Korean or Japanese version on the actual day, or borrowing from the Western version. But the quote-unquote Chinese version of Valentine's Day is not on February 14th. It's on July 7th of the lunar calendar, meaning the 7th day of the 7th month of the lunar calendar, and that's called the Qixi Festival. And this year falls on August 29th. So have you heard of this festival before?
I have. Have you?
Not before today, actually.
In Japan, it's called Tanabata.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. Okay. But have you? Do they? I don't know if they also do this in Taiwan. Do they?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Not to put you on the spot or anything. According to the South China Morning Post, the festival holds deep cultural significance in Chinese folklore, and many couples time their weddings to coincide with the festival, believing that tying the knot during this auspicious time will bring lots of luck.
Okay.
And that's verbatim from what the SMPC said. But the story about Qixi, do you know the story about that?
I do.
Oh, you do? Okay. So without reading then, you there to explain.
The basic premise is that it's two lovers. It's like a Eastern Romeo and Juliet kind of story. It's
that
like two
predates
lovers.
it by 1,400 years.
Yes.
But yes.
I think two lovers meet, but the woman's father doesn't approve. So he separates them in the sky, and they can only meet once a year when like the stars align just perfectly and they can like reach across to each other.
Okay. Well, I'm sure there are many different versions of the tale, but the one that I read, this was where the woman, Xinu, who is the daughter of a goddess, and she's really good at weaving, apparently, she fell in love with Lang, who is a cowherd. So he's a farmer who raises cows. And they got married and had 2 kids, but it was her mom that found out that she married a mortal. Her mom was a goddess. And so she kidnapped Xinu back to heaven and separated them by a river of stars, which they could not cross, which we now know as the Milky Way. And so they were literally star-crossed lovers. Right?
Yeah.
So when the couple were helped, they were helped by some birds to cross this river and build a bridge across it. And so they were able to reunite. And then after that, Xinu's mom decided that their love was so strong that she would allow them to meet once per year on 7/7. And so that's the story of Qixi.
Oh.
Yeah, very cute. Of course, this is all sounds like mythology, right? But if you think about it, have you ever heard of ancient alien hypothesis?
No, what is this?
The ancient alien hypothesis is that anything that's in mythology is actually true, but it involves alien visitors to to Earth.
So you're including like the Greek and Roman gods.
Yeah, totally. So like, Zeus is a real person, Apollo is a real person. In this case, Xenu's mom and Xenu herself are members of a spacefaring civilization who landed on Earth. She fell in love with the cowherd, and then mom disapproved, took her away back into space, and that's why they were separate. And then the birds are not actually birds, but these are,
spaceships.
aliens of another species that enabled them to reunite by taking the man to see his wife in space.
Oh, so you're saying play by play, it happened.
I mean,
like it happened.
If we're going to apply the ancient alien hypothesis to this mythology, then yes.
I thought we were talking about Valentine's Day, but now we're talking about aliens.
Well, we got to keep it geeky around here. But of course, that's not within the domain of RFA Insider for real. So I think that we do have to draw things to an end today.
Okay.
So that about wraps it up for RFA Insider today. For Amy Lee, I'm Eugene Hong, and we will see you next time.
See ya.
Like what you heard today? It would really mean a lot to us if you would like, subscribe, or follow this podcast. You can also share it on social media or even text messages. Feeling frisky? Give us a rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or elsewhere. Goodbye for now, and we'll see you here for the next episode of RFA Insider. Sure? Yeah. All right.